right, guys. Hello. I'm be going over creating a four-man front. Um, Hello and welcome to creating a four-man front while using a 3-4 defense with the movements. This presentation that I'm going over is going to show you a foundational process to stop the run first. All our efforts on the defensive side of things go to obstructing the offensive run game. My name is Omar Collier, and I want to share with you 3 basic ways we focus on stopping the run in detail. And we're going to be mindful of our objectives as they are to erase vertical run lines through line stunt movements. Those line stunt movements require arc stepping techniques, starting with the defensive tackles and nose with the correct exchange of gaps by the other remaining 8 defenders. And before we start, I want to take a moment to give thanks to Coach Wright and the defensive staff here at Cross High School, located near Charleston, South Carolina, as they gave me the opportunity for trial and error, which allowed us to create this defensive system, the Trojan way. Now, to me, you're only as good as the coaches around you. So that's why I wanted to give thanks to those guys. Now, our defensive success is as follows in 2023. Last year, we went 11-2. We only gave up 122 points total in 13 games. We had allowed 9.38 games in those 13 games. We've done pretty good with sacks. We had 25. We had 37 turnovers. We had 9 defensive scores. Also, we had 28 quarters with no points scored. Total of 6 shutouts. We had 6 in a row. We had 18 fumble recoveries, 19 interceptions, and we were top 10 defense in the state of South Carolina with across all levels, even though we're a 1A school. So from that standpoint, I want to go ahead and let y'all guys know my background. I came from Strong Thurman, which is in South Carolina. After I graduated from Strong Thurman, I went on to Mars Hill University. It was Mars Hill College at that time. Played 4 years there, was a pretty good starter. After that, I coached at Mars Hill under Tim Clifton. My defensive coordinator at that time was Kevin Barnett, and he went through and taught the 4-2-5 defense. And from that, I grew on. And then I moved from Mars Hill to Cross. And at Cross, I went with Art Mann, who was the head coach there. And we did some pretty good things with a 4-man front. We went to a few, playoff games there and created some good talent as far as all-star guys who went to the North-South. McCormick is a place I went to just to learn defense again. And that scheme there taught me a lot because as a defensive coordinator at McCormick, I won no games at all. And we allowed over 30 points per game. I left McCormick. That was a good teaching tool, but I went on to Evans High School over in Georgia to where I helped with the offensive line. And I learned the IHO system with inside, head up, outside technique, which, gave me the opportunity to learn a little bit more as a defensive coordinator. Then from Evans, I went on to North Greenville University. There under Mike Taylor, we won the Victory Bowl. We went 10-2. I was coaching the defensive backs, and later on, I became the defensive coordinator. From North Greenville, I moved on to Eastside High School in Greenville, South Carolina, which was Jay Phelps. That team at that time didn't have a structure of defense, so he brought me in to structure that defense. And for 10 years, they never went to the playoffs. So structured the defense, brought in a 4-man front, and we were able to bounce and get into the playoffs there. Then I moved on to Christ Church, which I went through and learned from Don Frost, and he's more of a 4-man front, but attacking style, 4-3 defense. He went through and taught me how to build a culture. And there I was able to learn from him how to build state championship caliber guys. Those are going to be consistent, those that were going to listen to you, and each challenge that you put out, those guys was going to accept it. So Christ Church, I was able to enjoy with Coach Frost 4 state championships. And then from Christ Church, I moved on to Batesburg-Leesville, to where I met Coach Adams. He was the head coach there. He gave me the opportunity to be the co-defensive coordinator. And it was an awesome process. We've done some great things at Batesburg-Leesville, to where we created some guys who were pretty good North-South all-star guys as well with the defensive front. And then I moved on to Philip Simmons. That was in 2022. And at Philip Simmons, I was just the defensive back coach. But at Philip Simmons, I had the best defensive back core that I've ever coached. And leading the way was Troy Stevenson, which he's going to Georgia Tech next year, this coming up year. So Jacques Green, all those different guys, that group was special. And now I've moved back on to Cross, and here loving it with Coach Wright. And then that's my background. So I came from Strong Thurman with a 50 defensive front, learning the wing T offense, moving from 4-3, 4-2, and now going into a 3-4. All right. Why the 3-4? Simply because it's a more aggressive way that we can place speed on the field. And to me, I love smaller guys versus the bigger offensive linemen. And that's what we do here at Cross. We make sure our small, agile guys are attacking the front and getting underneath. They're going through and doing wrong arming. They're getting to the mesh point. They're attacking inside shoulders, ripping underneath, and getting into the backfield. So to me, the 3-4, I wouldn't have told you this back in the days, but now I'm loving the 3-4. So this is a good defense. All right. There's good things for disguise as well. So the next thing that we're talking about is the infrastructure of what we set up. So our 3-4 infrastructure, what we do here is our defense is built on disguise. We will always do our best to make the offense guess what we're doing. So we'll hide our 1 and our 3 technique, creating that 4-man front. For example, what we'll do, we'll show an outside blitz, then blitz outside. The next time we'll show an outside blitz, and then we'll blitz inside. We're going to get the offense off guard by being unpredictable and always create confusion for the offense. Now, we have to make sure that we're doing the art of presentation. So when we show a blitz, it must be believable with an aggressive stance, showing the attacking action of a blitz. Now, the defensive linemen, they're going to be multi-directional players who can move in any direction at the snap of the ball. Our alignment is key to disguising our defensive attack. So we execute our defensive attack, we must have simple, concise reads. And those reads must be clear, and they have to be understood, you know, what the offense is doing and where they're going with the ball. So the defensive line, they're going to read in the direction that they're going. So they're going to get a face read or they're going to get a butt read, which we'll talk about later on. Now, while on the move, they're eyeing the guards and those tackles. So now the inside linebackers, they're going to read the guards, watching the backfield flow. Outside linebackers are going to read the tackles, and the corners are going to read the backfield action. So the run action for the offensive line is going to be right, left, and forward, of course. But then the run reads for backfield action is the mesh between quarterback and running back. And our pass actions for offensive linemen is going to be high hat, high frame with rapid kick steps. Backfield pass action is going to be the quarterback with the ball high to his ear hole of the helmet for the pass read. Now, reading for screens is going to be watching for free releases by the offensive linemen and running backs. This action is going to be blocking for a 1 count and then release. When wide receivers move into blocking position or running a route behind the line of scrimmage or LOS, we must recognize something is up quickly. And then we got to locate where the ball carrier is going. And then we're going to rally to it. Always going to rally. Now, defensively, all screens are hustle plays. and they're going to require an all-out effort by everyone on the defense to stop the play. Now, the second level defenders, they're going to match the front. It's almost like a puzzle piece. So the outside and inside linebackers are going to move into position to fit the front. And this is going to obstruct any vertical running lanes from opening up. Now, the third level defenders, which are the defensive backs, they're going to match the linebacker support for run support, whether they need to replace. Then also they go through a process of outside. If I'm that safety rolling down, I force or I spill. Then corners, they can contain, or in a cover 2 look, they can become a free hitter. So they can tackle the ball carrier. And the coverages that we do behind that will assist us in protecting our defensive system. And they are cover 2 and cover 3. All right. Now here, we're talking about our keys and our reads here. We're just going to go through and do a triangle. So what we do here for our front, we're going to make sure that our tackles, we're going to go through and read from our tackle to guard here. All right. Now, from this here, it depends on what call we have. So if we've got a call that's going to send these guys to the right, so what I need to do, I need to make sure I'm reading the inside hip of that guard if I'm that tackle. This tackle here reads outside hip. So that's going to be our front keys and our reads there. So at the snap of the ball, the tackles are going to move in their direction. I'm reading here. If I get a face read, I'm going to create penetration. I'm going to fight force with force. And if it's a butt read, I'm going to go ahead and squeeze. So I'm going to squeeze down into it. All right. That's for the tackles. All right, let me erase that. All right, now for the nose, it's always going to be guard to guard. So the nose is going to be inside hip of the guard here, inside hip of the guard, inside hip of the guard. So wherever he's going. So if it's, all right, let's say if it's a right call, let me erase that real quick. All right, it's a right call. We're going right to the right direction. It's this hip here. So the guy in front of me don't exist. So I got to get in the inside hip of this dang guard. If that guy does a face read, the same thing. I got to fight force with force. If he gives me a butt read, I got to make sure I squeeze. And I always, those three guys here always have to trace to the ball. They got to trace to the ball carrier. So no matter if it's going to the flow of the line stunt or it's not. All right. Now to the inside linebackers, these guys here, they are scrapers, they're fillers. So wherever they go through and they see here from the mesh of the quarterback and from the read of their guards. All right. And that's what we're trying to do because their alignment is in 20s. That's what they're trying to do here. So here we have our triangle for here. All right. I'm not the best drawer, so we're going to make sure we get this thing keyed up. But I want to make sure I'm reading through here. So if my back disappears and I'm this guy, my back disappears, I'm looking for the next back, which is the quarterback. And the same thing here. If this quarterback goes away, I'm looking for the tailback to come my way if I'm on this side. So all we're doing once again is fill and scraping. So if I get a pull, I have to make sure from that side, if I get a pull here, I need to make sure if I'm here, I'm reading that. I'm going through and I'm going over. Pull, pull, pull. Everybody's going to that side. All right. Because 9 times out of 10 with high school football, especially in South Carolina, that tailback is on this side. That ball is coming this way. All right. So let me get my undos down. Now for the outside guys, for the outside linebackers, they're going to read M-loss. So they're going to read in man on the line of scrimmage. So that's there. That's what they're going to read. They're going to read that tackle. So if the slant is going right, he's automatically in the line stunt. So he becomes my 5 technique. He becomes my 5. All right. This tackle becomes my 3. All right. The nose becomes my 1. And the outside that's tackled here becomes my 5. And then this guy here, he's the open, so he's the Okie, so he's the free hitter. All right. So if I slant here, I slant here, I slant, and I turn him. And all I want to do is half anchor with this guy because the slant is coming to me. I want to make sure I turn the shoulders of this tackle. Now here, I want to make sure I'm crashing inside, so I'm beating the tackle across his face. And if I don't beat the tackle, I got to match him so he does not get to the linebackers. All right. So there's our front reads there. Delete that. All right, now the second part of the infrastructure, what we got to do here, we're talking about the defensive linemen, and they got to be perfect agile technicians, and they got to have the art of kinetic movement. So big guys still got to move too. They still got to be able to rotate their trunk. They got to be able to step, plant, move fast off the ball. They got to have a great reaction. So the action of body manipulation applied with force will be our starting point to defend our defensive real estate. So we got to talk about the protection of a C principle, which is our main objective. And the C principle is just like the umbrella, what some of you guys know. The C principle comes from the name of the school, and which is cross. So, and the defensive objective is to protect the middle and the edges of the defense. So what we're going to do here, we're going to talk about the area of protection pertaining to the C principle. And it starts with the outside heels of the tackles, and it arcs 3 yards in front of the inside linebackers, connecting in front of the center. So in saying, we have to make sure that the offense is only allowed 3 yards or less, because we want to wham the offense. So we want to win on first down, attack on second, and minimize on third. So from that, the actions that we will take consist of wrong arming, that just twisting your trunk. Now my outside arm is not free. My outside arm becomes my inside arm. Spilling and exchanging gaps to protect the middle and the edges of the defense. So we have a 4-way phase to trap the ball. And how we do it in sequential order. So first, we're going to do a force, second field, third is cut back, and fourth is that we have trail pursuit. And that trail is going to do a boot counter reverse. And in all, we're going to make sure that we set the edge of the defense. That's our staple of the infrastructure. You got to set the edge. Tackles, what we're going to do, if we're the outside guy in that 5 technique, we're going to set the fence. If we set in the fence, we're going to bounce that ball inside to the teeth of the defense, or we're going to bounce it outside to the free hitters. Now, the opposite side, we got the outside linebackers. We become spillers, and we're wrong arming all kick out blocks. So that's what we're talking about, our small, agile players going up against offensive linemen, guards, tackles. It don't matter. We got our guys playing in space. Space is our friend with our smaller guys. So they're going to wrong arm, get underneath, and make that play bounce to the open free hitter. So the boundary corner, if we on the field side, the wide side of the field, of that boundary corner, he becomes a squatter because it's less space. And when that outside linebacker spills or wrong arms the kick out block, we got to make sure we have a fast, quick tackle. So the ball carrier has to get down on the ground, and we have to get them down within 4 seconds. And that's one of the things that we do. So the field corner becomes the knifer if the ball comes to the field side. That's the wider side of the ball. And he's going to knife. He's going to knife inside, and he's going to make sure he's at the inside top of that numbers making that play. All right. So now the C principle. Here, all right, the C principle. Here, we have an upside down umbrella, and that's why I brought that up before. Now, with this same image, I'm going to go through and draw it here. But what we want to do, we want to make sure we understand, like through this line of scrimmage, right? And we're doing 3 yards, arcing to the front toes of those linebackers, 3 yards, right? You're arcing it, and it all connects in front of that center. So we're saying that's what the offense is getting. We're giving them that. We have to make sure we fight downhill and make sure that the runs that they have, it's 3 yards or less. That's what we want, 3 yards or less. Because on 4th down and 1, we're trying to bring it. All right. But if we can do a little bit better job than that, that's what we're going to do. And here, what we have, you have D gap, all right, C gap, B gap, A gap, A gap, B gap, C gap, D gap. All right. If anything else is extra, we're going to fit here just in case if they bring in extra tight end, they bring in an extra H-back to add extra gaps. We're going to make sure we add numbers to it because once again, it's all a numbers game. And that's what we're trying to do. So here, that's all we're trying to do. So we're trying to protect that. So this is what I call the C principle. All right. All right, now close that out. Cover the C principle. All right, now the 4 ways we're going to trap a ball. We have a good little image here. We went through a process to where we're trapping the ball in all different phases to where it cannot move. Once we trap, in 4 seconds, the ball carrier has to be on the ground. So in showing that, now here we're going to say, this is the ball, it's fast flow, it was outside, and this is the ball carrier. I have an R on him. What we're going to do here, outside linebacker, his job is to make sure that he is forced. He's forced. We got feel from this linebacker here. He's going to feel. All right. This linebacker here, he's going to check step. He's going to come through. Now he has cutback. Now here, this outside linebacker here, what he's going to do, he's going to check step here, and he's going to make sure he trails. He trails. He's checking for boot, counter, reverse. All right. On the opposite side, same thing. All right. We have force here, balls here. That's the runner. Balls here. Outside guy's going to force it. We want to feel. He's going to come through check step. He's going to go through the cutback. He's going to check step, boot, counter, reverse, and then trail. Same thing on either side. So that's what we want to do. We want to make sure we trapping that ball in 4 phases. All right. Now to get into it, we're going to talk about 3 different ways of how we can set up that 4-man front using the asymmetrical 3-4 defense. What we're going to do here, field, with balls on the right side, we're saying the field is the wide side. So all of this is the field. And here, what I have in red, right here, that's where the ball is. So it's on our right. So we're going to make sure if data provides us information, we're going to make sure the wide side of the field dictates our defense attack, depending on the data. And also it is a quick strategy to make sure we set up the defense the fastest way. And the focus is on the field instead of the offensive formation. So once again, all your huddle information, whatever data tracker that you have, you're using that to set up what type of call you're going to do versus the offense. That's what you're going to do. Whatever field data that you can bring into that. All right. Now, next up, let's get rid of that. All right, now boundary. And the same thing here. We're going to look at information to see, okay, what's the process? What type of plays do you run into the boundary? All right. Not a lot of high schools do it, but you know, once you get into that playoffs, it's a little different. All right. So what we try to do, we try to bring in that data. Okay, boundary calls, what can we do? And then from that data, we bring it in. This is what we're going to do. All right, first up. Now, going back to the field call. What we're going to do here, we're going to play a cover 2 behind it, because here we have our corner. We'll have our corner here squatting on the numbers. Corner here squatting on the numbers. And the reason why is because when we bring that outside linebacker to the field, right? We're bringing him to the field. So what's going to happen? We need a quick tackle right here. So this guy is going to have to play flats for coverage. Then he's going to have to knife inside or squat And at this turn right here, because he's boundary, he's going to have to squat and make that quick tackle. Okay. So that's that field call. All right, erase that. All right, now here's a good little diagram of it. So what we want to do here, we want to make sure that these guys here have ball flow. So that's the inside linebackers. Wherever the ball is flowing, that's where they're going. They're going to fit into the process of where the line stunt is coming from. Because remember, this is our 5 technique now. That's our 5. That's our 3. That's our 1. And that's our 5. So that's how you get your 4-man front. So with that, we're bringing this guy with the right stunt. He's fence setter. He's an open field tackler. He's a free hitter. We got a knifer here. We got our 2 guys in coverage. We got our corner that can squat. All right. And everything's taken care of. And with our aggression, we're going to make sure if there's a run in 4 seconds, we got to make sure that that ball carrier is on the ground in 4 seconds. All right, delete that. All right, next up. Now here, have a little fill, a little cut up here. We're trying to go through and do it. This is probably the 2nd game of the year. We're getting decent at it. You know, these are young guys, so it doesn't quite look exactly like how I've drawn up, but those guys are still being aggressive. They're still getting at their little zones, not quite in the area that I want, but they're getting there. So here, we went through and did a field data on this. And what happened was we showed that on certain downs, and this was a 3rd and long here, on certain downs, what they did hitch and fade. So from that, we just played a cover 2 behind it. We sent the blitz to the field, and this is what we came up with. All right. And the defensive backs, once again, they had 19 interceptions. So they love when you give them data that lets them know that they can get an interception. They love it. So we got our guy coming here. Needs to come a little quicker. He's a reduction side. He's coming here. This tackle here needs to hit guard. All right. Now this nose needs to hit inside of the center and hit inside hip of the guard. He's coming outside here trying to turn the tackle. So that's what it should look like. All right. Once again, let it roll. They're coming through. All right, next one up. Same thing here. We're bringing it to the field. Now, this is a good one to show an illustration of the corner doing what he's supposed to do. Even though right now we're playing with 10 guys, and that always kills me. One of our guys got hurt, didn't go through and let us know it was a 1A ball. So with 1 guy down, that equals 3. So that was a process here. So we're supposed to have our outside linebacker here. There's nobody here, but our guys are getting after it, and they showing what they can go through and do, even though we down a guy. So aggressive at the point of attack. He falls, should keep his feet. We have our outside linebacker that automatically triggers. That fails. Then we have our corner who goes, supposed to knife, but he still comes up and make that play. All right. Now here, one more, then we move on to the boundary. Here's a good crash. This is out of our option here. Did a good job of crashing. Those guys are getting after it. And like I said, you can put a stopwatch to it. Those guys know 4 seconds, we got to get that ball carrier down. And the reason for that, because after 4 seconds, if the offense still has the ball and they're running, it's bad for the defense. All right. All right. Now, on the boundary side, the same thing. We're trying to get that information collected to say, okay, this is what we need to do. So if it's boundary on the short side of the field, we're going to make sure we play cover 3. So from that, we're going to go through our hash. Is on the left. We're going to make sure we understand that we're going to send that line stunt to the boundary. Depending on the data that we receive, we're saying, okay, you run certain plays to the boundary. So on this down, we're going to get you in the boundary. All right. So now this is the illustration of it. This is how it's supposed to look. All right. We got our 5 once again here. We got our 5. Let me draw it up. 5. All right. We got our 3. We got our 1. We got our 5. And that's how we attack it. That's how you're creating that 4-man front with smaller guys. All right. Delete that. Now we're playing cover 3 behind it. It didn't delete. Hold on. Sorry about that. Dang, it didn't delete again. There we go. All right, now. Delete. There we go. Now. All right, here we go. Now we're going to show it to the boundary. As you can see, it's setting up to be a jet. And this is what we saw. We saw that process. So we wanted to start to attack it instead of going in line with the jet. So not do a field call, but do a boundary to where we're attacking them right off the rip. All right. So now what we do, we go through, we play cover 3 behind it. They're seeing it. They're calling it. They're crashing. I have an outside guy that played with the 3, number 3 receiver, which he should be crashing. So he should be crashing inside of here. It's his play to make. And then this guy should be the free hitter. All right. So now back again, we go here. But the one thing that happens out of this one is that we're supposed to have a force. We had a force. We had a field. We're having a cutback. And then our guy right here is kind of out of the way with a trail. He's not in good trail position. But what happens is the actual linebacker does a good job of filling, and we do a decent job of forcing to make that play. All right. Go ahead and delete that. I'll just move on. All right. Now, the next one here, same thing. We're trying to crash it to the boundary. This is what they like to do. When they go to twins, we found out into the boundary. These are the plays they like to run. They like to run it into the boundary, or they throw into the boundary. So from that, we learned that. So we just sent the blitz in, we crashed, put a hand in face, interception. And this interception return was probably the weirdest one I've ever seen. Yeah, but that's it. He breaks loose, friend still runs. It was crazy. But anyway, but that's what we do there. All right. Now, we go through that process, and what we're trying to do is, once again, is get that data to reflect what we need, and that's how we attack. So I'm a data-driven guy. Put a hand in the face, got the interception. All right. Now, same thing here. We're going to go through into the boundary. And that's a good example of the reduction side, right? The reduction side. So this guy here crashed inside, and man, made a great play. All right. So he beat that tackle inside. He beat that tackle inside. He should have got a little tighter to that hip of that guard, but it took him right to the play, 3-yard loss. All right. Now, the middle of the field is where we like to play our cover 2, and to where we like to do the same thing on both sides with our tackles. We send our tackles outside. Here, I'll go through and show you, because what we're trying to do here, we're trying to make sure that we're playing games with the nose. That's what we want to do. So sometimes play games with the nose so we can affect the center's call, because everything that we do, we try to make sure we're affecting the play caller, whatever he's doing. Like with our coverages, we try to make sure we affect the quarterback. What call is he going to do if he sees us in a 2 high and then roll to a 1 high? What is he going to do? So we try to do something to where every snap of the ball, pre-snap, we leave the play caller or the caller in a situation where they got a question mark. So here we do our cover 2, and we do our middle of the field stunt right here. So our inside linebacker is going to have both B gaps We're going to stunt with the other inside linebacker. He's going to tell the nose where to go. All right. So here we have our process. He's walking up. And sometimes what we'll do a face call. So it looks like we're running this, but we're not. So what he's doing, he's already acknowledged where the nose is going. So the nose already knows. And now what he's doing, he's just crossing. And 9 times out of 10, we've done this, they come up free. Because when you play games with the center, that caller, they don't know where he's going. And from my standpoint, when I was at Evans, I learned that offensive linemen don't like movement so much. So when you move, you cause problems. All right, next one here. Same thing, but it's a little different process. We show one as make it look like he's coming, so they count him on the line, and then we just bring the other guy. And straight free hit. And there it wasn't so much of the middle of the field. We noticed that these guys, they like to go on short down. It may be 2nd and 5, 3rd and 4. They like to get in 2 tights and do wishbone. And they love to run it, you know, in the A gaps. So what we did, we just went ahead and said, okay, when we end this, let's just call it. And that's what we did. And we came up pretty successful. So this is one of our first games that we had our shutout. All right, now we're going to show it once again here with the X, middle stunt. Here he's walking up, comes through, straight clean. All right, now one thing that I didn't like is the tackle. If you notice the tackle here, he's up too high, and then he's not fighting the outside of that tackle because he made the job harder than what it's supposed to be. All right, now. So let's get into what we call split responsibilities when we're doing reduction and we have a closed side and we have an open side or Okie. So through this process here, we just want to make sure we got the same information. So what we do the breakdown in the infrastructure. So we divide it. It's the same play. So we split it up so we can explain it better. So on the open side, you're going to have the tackle going out in C gap. You're going to have that nose get into A gap. You're going to have that tackle crashing, getting into B. So this is an example of the stunt going left, and our small outside guy, when in space, he becomes more agile, and that big offensive lineman find it hard and troublesome to block these guys. So when they maneuver and they come inside and do the wrong arm, it's hard for those guys to come through and make a block on them. So they're doing a good job of being aggressive. So what we do, we explain it to the open side, like I just did, and then we explain it on the closed side so they can get 2 pictures of it so they can get a whole spectrum of what they're supposed to be doing. All right. And then also we show them the free hitter, who's going to be replacing, which is this safety here. He's going to be replacing this guy here. All right. And then we're going to be playing cover 3 behind it. Here with same responsibilities, this is the middle stunt. So on both sides of the defense, on both sides, on the edges, we're doing the same thing. So we got both tackles going in C gap. So with that, we have 2 Okie sides or open sides to where that outside linebacker is the free hitter. Everything else has to be bounced to him. Now here is a little different because now our 4-man front is now a 5, a 1, a 1, and a 5. All right, let me move that one out the way there. It looks kind of confusing. Excuse me. All right. Now the 1's right there. So there we go. Now that's a 4-man front that we get into. So we're covering up. We're having the free inside linebacker handle both gaps. Now here we have a concept where it's the light of box. So in saying that if you have a 1 technique, all right, you have a 1 technique and a 5 technique. Now your outside backers can easily fall back into the B gap, fall back into it. And they can also, you know, be out in coverage if you playing against a passing team. Okay. All right. Now, here we're talking about our regular defense here. So we're talking about pianoing down, which is nothing but squeezing, ripping, wrong arming. We try our best to make sure that we create east-west runners. So in our regular defense, the defensive line in movement will happen on snap, moving in the direction of the call, whatever it may be, right or left. Our pre-snap look is 2 overhanging players with defensive lineman head up. Now, the tackle's going to be in 4s, nose going to be in 0. Toes over toes, head over head. That's what we're trying to do. Now, these techniques are used to keep what we're doing disguised. So the offensive linemen don't know what we're doing, don't know where the stun is, don't know if we bring where the 3 is going to be, you know, because offenses love to run to that 3, that open space there. Sometimes we'll do a little change up and bring in our middle stunt to where we'll play both ones, so you can't find the 3 technique. So that's what we'll do. All right. So then our linebackers, they're going to be in 20s covering up the guards, and they're going to be filling gaps. They're going to be mirroring, and they're going to do the flow of the ball while reading the guards. Now, outside linebackers, they're going to disguise, and they're going to do it by controlling the edge through being still or doing back and forth movement. You know, they're coming to the line looking like they're blitzing. They're moving out to detach number 2, or they're trying to line outside of the tight end. If you have a tight end, we're trying to do different things just to disguise things. So that's what we're going to do. Now, closed tackles will crash hard inside, and they're going to expect a butt read every single time. But we're always going to react to a face read, and our reaction needs to be fight force with force. Open side tackles, they're going to post defense, force the ball carrier to bubble or cut back to the teeth of the defense. And we're going to squeeze, and we're going to go through and make sure that there's no movement coming through to where those guys can't get to the linebackers. So we're always going to have hands on those linemen, pushing them out the way of the linebackers. Our linebackers need to be free because their job is to scrape and field. If it's cloudy, scrape over. All right. Now, pianoing down, open tackles. We're going to go through and talk about the down block. Now, with the down block, they're just going to go ahead and squeeze. Now, if the tackle, after he does the post first, if he's an outside movement going into C gap, he's going to make sure he does that first and then squeeze. Now, if there's a puller, now the tackle will wrong arm, and he will wrong arm the kick out block. I know some of you guys might like to do serve or whatever other technique. We get our guys moving. That's what we do. We don't want to hesitate, no hesitation. We're turning, we getting that ball bounced back out, or they're gonna have to cut that ball up, whichever one they want to do. That's on them. Now, after this action, we will trace the ball carrier, and we will do it full speed. Our goal is to prevent vertical running lanes. That's all we want to do. So we want to create a barrier, and the only area that's open is the out of bounds line to where we're creating the 12th man. That's all we're doing. So east-west runners. Now, the inside linebackers will exchange defensive gaps through defensive lineman movement and ball flow. So wherever the ball flows, that's where the linebacker is going. And their other key read is that guard. If they see the guard pull, they're yelling pull. Now, the theory of hat in a crack is as long as a crack or a gap is occupied, the offense will move onto the next gap. If no gap is open, then the ball carrier must bubble. Free hitters always need to make the tackle, no doubt. All right, now, next up, we're going to talk about the guys in front of you not existing. So we went over it a little bit, but here it goes in more in detail, talking about that those guys don't exist in front of you. All right. So the tackle, either we're trying to beat the defensive tackle, we're trying to beat the tackle to the inside hip of the guard, or we're trying to beat the tackle to his outside hip. Same thing over here. We're trying to beat him to the inside hip of the guard, or we're trying to beat him to the outside of his hip. That's what we're trying to do. Turning his shoulder back inside. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to post. Either we're trying to post or we crashing. Post or crashing. That's what we're trying to do. Now for the nose, his job is just going to be the same. It's both attacking A gaps, and he's going to be inside hip of guard, just depending on to his right side, or it's going to be to his left. That's it. So his is the same, but he has to beat the center. Has to. Delete that now. All right, now the exchange of gaps. So if we got a right call, this is a right call here. So what we're doing here, we're trying to make sure inside linebackers exchange those gaps. So that's what we're trying to do. We'll take check steps wherever the ball flows, because we will have certain gaps depending on the call. So when we exchange, we need to know what the defensive front is doing. So we got to know that. So that's why we do a lot of inside to make sure that those guys know what's going on up front, so they can fit, appropriately. So now they're going to need to read the defensive front, then they're going to read the guard, and then finally the ball flow. Wherever the ball flow is, that's where we're going. And we have to read it quick, fast, quick. And then if I'm the cutback linebacker, I have to make sure I'm at a slow pace to where I don't overrun it. Now, here, I'm gonna go through and talk about the Mike, all right? Inside linebacker, Mike has an A gap. Okay, now, if the stunt through here, we have A gap if we are exchanging gaps. Ball flow is, even though we got the line stunt going right, ball flow is left. So ball flow left, Mike is gonna have A gap, all right? A gap. Here, since the Trojan is doing his job, and the Trojan or the outside linebacker, he's going to pull, or he's going to jam that tight end into the C gap to cut it off. All right, because anything that's outside, art release, he's trying to kick out block. This Trojan is getting inside of it. That's it. He's getting the C gap. So he doesn't care about any outside releases. All he cares about is a down block. That's it. So if there's a down block, he knows he has to get over top. All right, if ball flows this way. Now, here, we talked about exchange of gaps. Mike has A, Sam has B. Then we're going to do the defensive movement. The guard is pulling opposite direction, and we just talked about is going left. Then Mike will have Phil scraping over outside linebacker. All right. And from that, they're going to go in, and Sam will have A gap scraping over nose. If ball flow bounces outside, same direction, which is right, then Mike will have B gap. So that's that. And once again, it's just those perfect exchange of gaps, and going over things as far as inside, that'll work. Keep doing it, repetitions. And those guys will really understand and know what they're doing. All right. Now, same thing, opposite side. And if you notice what I'm doing, I'm trying to place a tight end or a tight end H-back, because when you get into playoffs, some teams don't do it. Some offensive teams don't do it. They don't set the edge. They always come out and spread. They always come out in doubles. They always come out in trips. That's great for me, because that's an easy process. Outside linebackers, we're going to have a field day. But if those offenses goes through and have a three-man surface, or have an H-back added with it, then it's a little bit more complicated for us. So what we have to do, we have to change our directions and make sure that we're fitting to our actual gaps, and we're not getting anything as far as being washed. Now we have here a process, the same functionality is shown, but the defensive front movement is left. Mike will have B gap, Sam will have A. If the guard's pulling opposite direction, which is right, then Mike will have A gap scraping over nose and center action. Sam will feel scraping over outside linebacker, If ball flow bounces outside in the same direction, which is left, then Mike will scrape over the fence setter. Because remember, this guy's the fence setter because he's going outside, he's in a 5. And then we're going through a process to where the responsibility for B gap, that's what the Sam's going to do. Now for formations with a tight end and H-back versus defensive line movements or right or left, we're going to make sure we understand that close side, the inside linebacker will scrape over the reduced tackle and it's going to fit underneath that H-back. All right. Now with the defensive line middle exchange gap, we're going to make sure it's a balanced attack. So here, those guys understand they both Okies. It's going to allow for us to do our maneuvering with our middle, as you saw with some of that film, that 9 out of 10 times, those guys come free because of how we send in the nose and the data that we receive telling us what we need to do. So we're going to set the edge with the tackles, which are heavier guys. They're going to be, a pretty stout on those offensive tackles, turning those shoulders. And then if there's a down block or a kick out block that try to come to them, they're going to go ahead and do the same thing as the outside linebackers. They're going to go ahead and wrong arm, get underneath it, and make that ball bounce to the free open hitter. And once again, this is the light of box. So we're able to bring in a guy here who can actually play in coverage and he can help fall into B gap because there's a 1 technique. So what you do with the line or the line stunt can help you with the coverage as well. So once again, light of box principle. All right. Now here we're going to go through and talk about the tackle. Always expect the guard to give a butt read. And from that, we're going to react to a face. And like we said before, we're going to go ahead and fight force with force. And then everything's on the move. Then after the snap, tackle crashes. And then we're going to have a correct aim in the movement of the hip of the guard. We're going to stay 2 yards deep, right, on the line of scrimmage. All right, here it shows an example of that. We get in our 2 yards, and then we're going to squeeze. We're going to squeeze because now this is a butt read for him. He has to get across the face of that tackle. Across the face. He gets across the face of that tackle. Now that tackle is going to have a hard time trying to get to the linebackers. Or if he can't beat him, he matches them and he makes sure that tackle goes in the direction away from the linebackers. All right. Make sure I get it. All right, now the outside linebacker, he does the same thing right here. As we have the tackle going, now we have him in a 5 technique. He's fighting on the stalemate hip. He's in a 5. If that's a down block, he reduces. Anything tries to come to kick him out, he's getting underneath. All right, he's getting underneath, and we have an outside backer that's going to replace him with that safety. He's going to come upfield and be forced. Right, now. All right, now from distance, and this is what our outside linebackers, small guys from distance, make it hard on the offensive lineman to block. So the outside linebacker must react to a butt read. If you're going to reduce, if you get a face, he's going to fight force with force. And then we're going to use our athletic ability to beat the tackle or that pulling guard. Now, here's a good example of what we're talking about. If he kicks out, we're going underneath. All right, we're fighting force with force. So that's what we're going to do. He's going to go in. He's going to get ripped underneath, wrong arm it. And we're going to go ahead and try to make this play, push this thing back in the backfield, make this guy retreat. All right, now, for the opposite side, with tight end movement here, we're going to make sure that we produce vertical movement. We're going to get our guys in the backfield, 2 yards depth. And the reason why we only go 2 yards is because if you go more than 2 yards, you're susceptible to a trap. So somebody's going to trap you, or if you get too far upfield, they're not even going to bother with you. They're just going to let you run upfield, and they're going to run the play underneath you. Now, not too many high schools run in A gaps. So usually with a defense, you just got to make sure that you're protecting B and C gaps there, because most guys, they don't have a tight end or H back, and mostly they're just spread guys. All right. Now here we got a reaction with outside linebackers. Here, our outside linebackers, what we're going to do, we're going to get physical. We're going to play pool. We're going to make sure that we shock that tight end into the C gap so he can close it on that down block. And we're trying to keep that tight end off of that tackle. So that's our fourth lineman. He's coming in. There's a tight end there. And what we're trying to do, once again, we're trying to knock this guy into this gap here so he can stay off of our tackle. All right. So if our tackle, he cross face, he gets a face read, he wants to be able to fight force with force. And we're going to go ahead and make sure we get penetration there, 2 yards depth. All right, there we go. Now, the open defensive tackle here, what we're going to do here, we're going to make sure we set the edge. We're going to set that fence. We're going to make sure that nothing gets outside of us. We're going to take that power step. We're going to post that tackle, and we're going to do our best job to make sure that ball bounces to the open free hitter. Now, here's an example of open tackle, and we set in the fence. So here, what he's going to do, he's going to make sure he turn the tackle's shoulders and make sure ball bounces outside. All right. Now, our nose. The nose, and what he's going to do here in our tackles, they're going to make sure they penetrate 2 yards. They're going to make sure they do the hammer technique, or they're going to go in and do their arch steps. And arch steps is nothing but making sure they put, 3 cleats or 3 to 5 cleats in the ground, and they're moving those guys back, either with that butt or that face read. Now, with face read, definitely you want that penetration. All right. Now, the last few things that I have here is talking about the coverage focus. So here, when we run our field, when you run your boundary, when you run your middle stunts, there are certain coverages that you can run. With your boundary, it's best to run it with cover 3. With your field, it's best to run it with orange or cover 2. Now, from that, you just want to make sure that you're matching your coverages up with your line stunts, because like before with the light of box principle, you can always have an outside guy playing coverage if you're playing a passing team. I know for us, we don't see a passing team until we play against somebody into the playoffs. So most of the teams that we go against are run heavy. So we want to make sure we stop the run. All right. Now, that is a diagram of cover 2, and that's what we play with it. Remember, if we're on the short side of the boundary, our corner is going to squat. If we're on the field side, our corner is going to knife, and that's what run. But our guys are always squeezing that number 1 receiver, making it easy for those 2 high safeties to be able to cover those verticals or those deep shots. So that's what we want to make sure that we're doing. And also, if there's nothing that's showing in the flats, we want to make sure that those guys play deep. So squeeze, flats, play a deeper route. All right, now we went through, we covered that. Now, with corners read, this is what we're looking at. We're looking at cover 2. And with cover 2, those guys are able to read M-loss, and they're able to read the backfield mesh with the quarterback and the tailback. From that, they're able to read quickly what is going on. They don't even have to read the wide receivers. So if they see a pass set by the offensive line, they're going to know, okay, yeah, that's a pass. So I need to play flats, squeeze number one, you know, play the deeper route, rally to a shorter throw. Now, if there's a mesh read with the quarterback and tailback, they're just going to know here through that process with that mesh. All right, with that mesh, anytime the back is on this side, especially in South Carolina high school, that back is on this side, the ball is going to your side. And this guy on this side has to watch quarterback because the quarterback will pull it, Q read. Now, there's a few that they'll make sure that they'll run the ball, try to keep it on the same side, but it's very, very few. Okay. Now, their reads, they just want to make sure that once this is done, that mesh, they just want to make sure it's actually a run. And then if they see it, they can go through, quickly read it, and we got 9 people to the ball. 9 people to the ball, 2 guys in coverage. All right. Now with cover 3, we just have to make sure our corners and our free are able to take care of 2 to 3 verticals in their zone. And they play the deepest route. And we always react to the ball in the air, just like you've seen on that other video with that interception. And that's all we're trying to do. We're just trying to make these guys, get them the information they need, because most of these calls that we're talking about, my guys are able to make those calls on the field. I don't make those calls with field, by all that different type of stuff. They know it, and I give them the data, so they're able to make those 3 calls. All the other calls are left up to me and, you know, our defensive staff. But for the most part, those guys know, and they're taught how to go through and know, okay, if the ball's on this side of the field, okay, this is what the offense is going to do. And they know what the offense is going to do. They know it. So once they see it, they fly to the ball. All right, here, breakdown of cover 3. And this is the reason why cover 3, we got to be able to cover 2 into a zone, because it's always the seam, always that seam, always those seams. All right. Now the middle of the field is closed, but man, those seams are wide open, because these guys here, we have backer here, outside backer here. And our first thing that we got to do is stop what? Run. So those guys are here. Everybody's here. Everybody's here. Everybody's here. So from that, for them to get back into their zone to cover things, these guys got to understand that, hey, these guys, sometimes they may miss a guy and not put hands on him. If it's a down to where we don't know if it's going to be run a pass. So our corners and free, there's some guys that we know and understand that they're going to have to be very athletic. And once they see something, they're going to have that quickness and that twitchiness to make sure they're able to catch the ball at the highest point. And once we catch an interception, hey, we're trying to score a touchdown.